city's in my blood, and it means an enormous amount to me. But probably like many of you, I've always had this gnawing feeling that the city could be so much better than it is. The good thing is that I think we're at a very exciting moment of change in Auckland, and there have been some very exciting things happen over the last decade or so. I want an Auckland where the harbour is clean enough for us to swim at any beach, even after a day of heavy rain. I want a city where you don't need to own a car to survive. And we know that's doable because there are plenty of other cities, even quite close to here, where that's already the case. The real conversation now is not just about housing, it's not just about transport. There's a whole Auckland conversation that I think has developed. And it brings all of those aspects together. And my point is that we need to be able to talk about how we build a successful city and pull all of those strands together. Urban development, transport infrastructure, economic development, education, affordable housing, all of those things are good design, the role of the state and the private sector, all of those things together. That's the conversation that we need to have. We're going to roll out an accelerated program of delivering modern rapid transit for Auckland. We're finally going to deliver on the promise that Sir Dovemai Robinson made and the things that he campaigned for decades ago. Because it's our belief that a city of the scale of Auckland simply can't function properly without modern rapid transit woven into the fabric of the transport system. That's our belief. So much of the difficulty that we've had in Auckland has been about our failure collectively, central government, local government, everybody, to manage growth. And for too long and for too many people, growth has been a dirty word. But the urbanisation of this planet is an unstoppable force. It's been going on for 100 years, it's going to go on for another 100. And when you try and stop it, when you try and stop cities from growing, only one thing happens. The price of land and development and housing goes up. And that's basically what's happened in Auckland, to put it bluntly. We need a planning system that allows our city to make room for growth, to plan. It doesn't mean less planning, it doesn't mean just sort of anarchic sprawl, it means actually doing more planning. Acquiring land for roads and transport networks, protecting open spaces for future generations, protecting areas of special value. You know, some people think the versatile soils at Pukekohe should be set aside, coastal strip, there's lots of areas that the community could rightly feel should be set aside from development. But then we have to allow people to build. In fact, we have to encourage people to build. Because the cities that have affordable housing and successful urban land markets are the ones that allow a lot to be built. And there are plenty of good examples around the world that we can look to. We think that if Auckland Council and central government work together in a much more ambitious way to plan the growth of the city, we can ratchet up several levels from what's been done with the unitary plan and really make decisions that will give the markets certainty over 10 years, even 30 years. Where is the trunk infrastructure going to grow? Where are we going to push the rail lines? Where is the possibility for growth and development? That will make a big difference. And finally, the fifth point of this action plan, this agenda, is legislative reform. What do we need to do with the RMA, the Local Government Act, the Land Transport Management Act, to create a legislative framework that will encourage a system that truly fosters and facilitates and enables high quality growth?
Project Auckland, Fran, it's an initiative you've driven for years. It's an essential part of that. One of the things that I do look at for that is that winners look ahead, and that's what we're doing today, and I know it's what the Herald is doing. My first point probably acknowledges with the Minister that when I have a look at this government and the conversations we're hearing at the moment, that the government is sending some strong indications that it's prepared to get off the fence and act to accelerate the Auckland fix. And I think that if government are sending that signal, then in Auckland, business has to do that as well. I don't think that business should be risk averse, and I think there's a lesson in objectivity that we can pursue. I may not like some of the things that Stephen says, and Stephen may not like some of the things that I say, and we talked about that before. But we need to have those conversations so that we can create change. And as Stephen and I both agree, champions bounce back. So that's my first message. We've got to be prepared to get off the fence. The Minister, his government is prepared to do that. We need to do the same.
When we look at the New Zealand situation now, we can see, okay, through our debate, maybe we can find something through the China's example. Today I can feel, okay, transport and housing and urban development. What is the relationship? From our minister's title, I suddenly realized, through transport can develop urban growth.
Because frankly, for too long in Auckland, we've done things in a incremental, itsy-bitsy kind of manner. And even if you think about how we're trying to grow the city at the moment, and this is really the challenge I think that is in front of us, there's another 1 million people coming to Auckland by circa 2050. It might be 2060, it might be 2040, depending on the rate of growth, but another 1 million people. That's 3 Christchurches. If you think about the housing and infrastructure that is necessary to support another 1 million people, doing a little bit of growth incrementally everywhere will not deliver a livable city.
Starting with Phil, perhaps, as an Aucklander, what would be your big, audacious project that you would, it might not be on the books yet, but think harbour crossings and things. What would you love to see happen in Auckland, say, in the next 20 or 30 years in terms of a big, audacious project?
Michael Barnett just whispered Penlink to me. Actually, Liam, I think the big, hairy, audacious project for me really is the light rail network, and joining that up with high-quality master-planned urban development, where we see urban renewal across a vast swathe of our city, high-quality, modern, rapid transit, well-designed communities, good-quality homes at prices people can afford.
Well, I go back to the point that I made that scale is material to this, because if we try and do a little bit everywhere, we will not be chunky enough to actually deliver on time and to the sort of impact that is required. Look, I would really start with the focus on the heavy rail network. If you're talking about public transport, the CR rail investment is already underway. By 2021-22 it'll be open. The opportunity to treble the main trunk line and in fact quadruple the main trunk line, which would enable freight in both directions alongside passenger transport in both directions with high-speed rapid rail, then you're really starting to leverage the capacity of rail. But rail only really works where you've got big numbers at either end, and the 2 big numbers I would suggest are a city in the south and the CBD in the centre. And when you look at where all of the key employment areas for Auckland are, they are actually the industrial areas, and many of the commercial centres are along that railway line. So there you've got potentially really good connection between urban development and employment, which is fundamental.